All right, thank you. Good evening and welcome to the August 27th meeting of the Lawrence Douglas County Metropolitan Planning Commission. We'll start this evening with communications.
Actually, Chair,
sorry, the hybrid. I keep forgetting we're still hybrid. We will have Becky Pepper read the hybrid instructions for the meeting tonight.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good evening, everyone. Please silence your cell phones to minimize distraction during the meeting. When the Chair calls for public comment, please approach the podium to indicate you wish to speak. Virtual participants should use the raised hand function to indicate that they wish to speak during public comment. Once your name is called, please unmute and turn your camera on to provide your comments. Please state your name before speaking. The city reserves the right to turn videos off or mute participants. All comments will be limited to 3 minutes. The primary format to access and participate in this meeting is in person at City Hall. Virtual access to participate or view in the meeting cannot be guaranteed. The chat function will not be monitored. If you have any trouble, the meeting can be viewed on the city's YouTube channel and cable channel 25. Thank you.
Thank you. Our first order of business is communications. So are there any written communications from the public?
All communications received by the deadline were included as part of your packet.
Are there any written communications from staff, planning commissioners, or other commissioners?
None this evening.
Are there any written actions of waiver requests or determinations made by the city engineer?
Also none this evening.
Okay. This time I'll turn it to the commission to see if there's any ex parte communications regarding any of the matters before us this evening.
Not specifically to the matter, but I had a beer with Mr. Brust 3 weeks ago, and we just talked about life in general.
Okay. Anyone else want to talk about having beer? All right. Are there any declaration of abstentions from anything specific on the agenda this evening? Seeing none? All right. And so now we'll turn to general public comment. Is there anyone here in the room or online to give general public comment this evening? This is comment about items that are not on tonight's agenda. Does not appear that there's any. Zoni?
It's on the agenda. It's on the agenda. No, it's on the agenda. Okay, this is not on the agenda.
Okay. Because this is just for items that are not on the agenda. When we get to each agenda item, we will have public comment on each item. Thank you. With that, then we will turn to our regular agenda. And our first item is to consider a preliminary plat at 2500 O'Connell Road. And we will turn it over to Catherine.
Okay. Is that you moving that curve? Okay. It is this one, the second one. Yeah.
All right, you're on.
Okay. Let's see here. All right. Good evening, Commissioners. Catherine Week. I'm one of the planners. I'm here tonight to present a preliminary plat before you this evening for your consideration. This is for the estates of Malama. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, so if not, the applicant can maybe correct me. So just want to orient you on where this is located. This is located at the east or southeast intersection of 25th Terrace and O'Connell Road. It is currently on the parcel there currently is developed with a Cornerstone Church. It is one lot currently. They are proposing to plat this into 20 lots. One would maintain that existing development of the Cornerstone Church, and then the rest of it would be for future residential development. So that's what we're looking at this evening. This is a copy of what they presented, preliminary plat. As you know, preliminary plats are a two-step process. So the preliminary plat comes before you for a recommendation, and then the final plat, which would come later, if this were approved, is an administrative process. So this is the first step in a two-step process. The key points in this particular preliminary plat is that the property is within Tier 1 of the city's urban growth area for Plan 2040. The property is also within the boundaries of the Southeast Area Plan, so that is something we consider when we're reviewing items for development, and that is the guiding document incorporated into Plan 2040. This property is also zoned R3 under our new land development code, which is the medium density residential district. That district does permit the uses they're proposing to develop in the future with this preliminary plat. The proposed plat would accommodate a mix of housing. The proposal they present in this preliminary plat is a mix of detached dwellings, 2-unit dwellings, and 2 attached dwellings or multi-unit dwellings. All right. So there is existing infrastructure and right-of-way along the perimeter of this property. It is already platted for that one lot of the Cornerstone Church. So there is not additional perimeter dedications happening with this preliminary plat. There is some internal dedications proposed with this. One would be for the internal circulation or the residential or local street of Lolo Court. And then the other are the utility easements that would be needed to get services to each individual lot as required by code. And those dedications and easements would go before the City Commission at that time during the final plat for acceptance or consideration. So in our new code, Section 20-1109 outlines the items for consideration which are covered in the staff report in detail. All of those items are listed here, so we can go over them if you have questions. And we review preliminary plats to see if they conform to these requirements in the code. So one being that it has direct access to public or private street, which this one does, that it conforms to the minimum lot sizes as specified in the district that it would reside in, whether it conforms with the subdivision design standards in Section 810, and if it conforms with Plan 2040, and in this case, because it's in an area plan, that would also incorporate the future plans for that southeast area plan as well. And that is also outlined in the staff report about what the future uses are and what this development or preliminary plat would facilitate the development in the future. Whether it conforms with that major thoroughfares map, conforms to adopted water, wastewater, and drainage plans, and that it does not interfere with the logical connection of existing streets or connections to existing streets that would happen in the future. And then, of course, the plat document itself has to conform to the Kansas minimum standards for boundary surveys. And all of these items I've outlined, and we can, if you have questions, I can go through them. So staff, in reviewing all of those criteria points, found that it did meet all of those in their review, and that we are recommending approval for this preliminary plat. And so I would be happy to stand for questions or clarifications if you have them. I also might note that we only had the one communication in the packet. We didn't get communications per se, but we did get a couple phone calls just asking what is the project, what does the plat look like, and I sent the plat document out to those individuals and to answer their questions. So that's about it.
Thank you,
Okay.
Catherine.
Any questions?
If we have questions, we'll come
Okay,
back.
perfect.
Thanks. Is the applicant here this evening, this week? Okay, great.
Stop share.
As you know, you have 10 minutes to address the commission.
Good evening, Commissioners. Jason Hoskinson, engineer with BG Consultants, and I'm representing the applicant on this particular plat, preliminary plat you have before you tonight. I don't have a lot to add. I think Catherine and staff did a great job going through this. It's been kind of fun working through the new code and seeing how everything fits with land development here and how we're applying it. A couple things I will add. Catherine mentioned there's going to be kind of a mix of housing in the development. The developer's plan right now would be for single-family housing on that southern border. Is it possible to pull up the plat?
I can, if you want to go back to the share, Kurt.
I could just describe it. I might end up blowing up the computer. So, but there would be a plan for single-family residential homes kind of on that 26th Street southern border of the property, and then primarily duplexes, townhomes in on Lolo Court, kind of wrapped and tucked inside the development area. Right now, the developer would plan to have a ownership and maintenance component to that to deal with lawn mowing and maintenance of the track and the detention area and kind of that open space in there. So they do have some plans to try to deal with some of the questions that were brought up through the communications that staff did receive regarding maintenance. And then Tract A, as you can see there on the description, would be the primary area for detention pond. There's an existing pond there right now to detain stormwater runoff. We would be increasing the size and kind of changing the shape to work with this land to address the increased runoff from a little more density from the houses. So those were the highlights I wanted to add tonight. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have now or later as they come up. So appreciate you. Thanks.
Thank you. And this time we will turn to public comment on this item. Is there anyone here tonight to comment on this in person or online? Don't see anyone, so we'll bring it back to the commission for discussion.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
Sir, would you come up, please? I'm looking at the preliminary plat, and on the north side of that is a lot of open space. There's an existing building, a parking lot. On either side of that, it seems like it's, I guess that's the church, right?
Yes, that's the church.
Intention to keep all of that ground open and empty, or will that be developed down the road? Do you know?
I don't know of any plans right now to do anything with that. Basically, that area to the north of the smaller residential lots, that will all remain the church's property for them to own and maintain and do with as they want to into the future.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions?
Go ahead.
Yes. Commissioner Eldridge?
I have a couple of questions for Catherine. The first question is having to do with the cul-de-sac. My memory, if it serves me well, is that when we had the land development code discussions, there was a lot of discussion about the connectivity of streets, and the intention was to discourage cul-de-sacs. And I was wondering why it is, how this fits the requirement for a logical connection of streets.
Yeah, so I think in this case, because the connections are all established along the perimeter, and this is kind of, there's no additional connection permitted on the O'Connell Road. So I think the solution is that it has to be internal access in this case, so as not to interfere with that perimeter connection that is already established.
That makes sense. Thank you. And then my next question is an arithmetic question.
On a what question?
Arithmetic question.
Oh, an arithmetic, okay.
And that has to do with net density. All the time through the development code, I struggled with net density and the various definitions we had of it. And so I looked back in the development code and I looked at the description of gross density and net density. And they seem to depend on whether you're using a district-wide basis or a parcel. And so I wanted to know, in this particular case, are we looking at a district at all?
No, we're looking at the developing the area that is under potential development. So the area that was used to calculate the net density is the developing area, not the existing lot, even though that is one large parcel currently. That is not being calculated as part of that net density. The net density is just the area under development.
So it is the development proposal rather than the entire parcel that we're looking at for net density?
Yes, so yeah.
So is there a reason we're not using the whole parcel?
So that is the way the definitions of each item play out in the code based on gross area, net area, and we can maybe pull that definition up, or I can go grab it and read it to you.
That would be great. I was looking at that definition of net density being the measurement at a parcel level expressed as a measurement of how many units the specific site allows. And to me, this was a parcel and it was a site, and so I had trouble with that.
So parcel is not necessarily the same as site or development area. And also, I actually had the same question, which we kind of discussed amongst staff, whether or not at the parcel level meant the whole parcel or just the development area. And it came back to the definition where they talk about development. So I'll see if I can go pull that definition up if someone hasn't gotten there already, but let me see.
This is a good conversation because this is one staff has been having since the adoption of the code, since this is one of the first plats that we've seen. And so through the process, and Jason's been quite kind to work with us a little bit as we've been going through this one a little, is we're finding where we have some of the faults in the code that you'll be seeing in a cleanup amendment coming forward, is because as we start to work through the different portions and iterations of the code, we're starting to see little disconnects in it that we're trying to connect the dots to. So you'll see a cleanup amendment coming that'll be related to some of the work that we've got on this area and some other areas that we've identified. But there is a little bit of incongruent language in there that we're trying to work through as we go through the platting process at the moment.
So when you describe the development area, I think is about 5.5 acres, does that include any rights of way?
It did include the rights of way, yes.
Okay.
That was yes, that is listed in the code that so they actually remove or subtract the area that are non-buildable. So that would be designated rights of way and utility easements that are not able to be built on. So that is subtracted in the area that can be developed to the density requirement in the district. Did that make sense?
Yep.
I'm confused.
Yeah, we are too, but yes, that's where we're at. So yeah.
So the 5.5 acres does include the right-of-way for the cul-de-sac.
So the area of development is the 5.5 acres. I'd have to look at the table on the plat, but when they're calculating the net density, that area, they do subtract out the non-buildable areas. So the areas that are not able to be built on, they are used for public infrastructure, either transportation or the utility easements. Those come out of the area before they calculate the net density.
So that excludes all the easements and all the rights of way. Is that
Correct.
what you, all right. So then you take the 5.5 and what's the math that you get to the density? How do you get there?
I think we calculated it at, I think it's in the staff report. I think the applicant might want to address this as how he got to the math, but I think it was
Anybody
like
who can
10
help me with
something.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be happy to chime in a little bit here because it has been kind of a back and forth.
Yeah.
Let's figure this out process. So kind of bouncing down through the math real quick for the site. So the whole site, including the church, is about 8 acres. My client, the applicant, well, I guess the church is the applicant, but anyway, they're selling the southern 5.5 acres to my client who's going to develop the 5.5 acres. If we take out the rights of way for the street, the easements, the unbuildable space, it actually brings us down to about 3.65 acres of buildable net parcel area. And then we do the math of, okay, how many units are we putting in on that 3.65 acres? And that's 39, I think it was?
Yeah.
Divided by the 3.65 is how you get to the roughly 10 and a half units per acre as a net density. And then as a reminder on the R3, as Catherine mentioned earlier, the net density requirement's 7 to 15. So it puts it right in the middle, right in the sweet spot of the R3 zoning.
So in terms of the math, we use the 3.65 acres and we divide that by 39 units.
Other way around. Divide
39
by the 3.65 acres.
Okay.
Yeah, but those are the two numbers in the equation.
And the 39 is the total units, and the 3.65 is the buildable land.
Yes, the net buildable area. And to kind of elaborate a little bit more on that, the easements and the rights of way are basically the minimum standards set forth in the code. So we didn't increase utility easements bigger than what the code specified. We say, okay, do we need an easement here? Yes, the code says here's where you put it and here's how big it needs to be. We make sure the utilities will fit there. For sewer, for example, make sure if it's a deep sewer, maybe the easement needs to be bigger. But we went to the minimums on that, which gives us the biggest net buildable area you can get on this 5.5 acres.
So I should be able to take 39, divide 365, and come up with 7?
No, that'll get you the
10.6 something.
Okay.
Yeah, that was in the
Right.
staff report.
Thank you. I was going to say, it looks to me like it's closer to 10 or 11, and I,
10.68.
thank you.
Yeah, we actually updated that table because when I sent this through in the preliminary plat application, I wasn't 100% clear on whether we take out easements and some other things due to the language in the report or in the codes. And so I had actually left the easements in Lolo Court in there, and I believe, we sent through a revision plat. I think what may have actually got into
The staff report.
the staff report was the old one that showed 7 as the net density on my plat that was submitted. It's been corrected through revisions, and it should actually be the 10.6 in staff report.
So thank you very much. I really appreciate that. So Catherine or Jeff, I'm not quite sure who, but if instead of having the 39 units being proposed, if we just had a 6-unit apartment house being proposed on one lot, would we be looking at all of the developable area or only the lot that had a specific development proposed?
So are you proposing that question for this one? Like if this was going to be split just in 2 lots, one for the church and one for a 6-unit multi, then it would be for the larger parcel that is housing the 6-unit multi-dwelling, not the church, because that is an existing developed parcel.
So we're looking at the number of units that are proposed, not the number of units that could be developed.
Well, that's what I reviewed in the staff report, but you have to keep in mind that the plat just has to plan for meeting that density.
Yeah.
Then the final plat has to be substantially the same without rising to the level of a major change for it to be administrative. If the final plat were to come back and they had a wholly different plan where now they're not doing 39 units, but they would be smaller lots or larger lots or whatever that might be, that would probably be a substantial change that would come back before you again to look at. So yes, we're looking at the area as they are proposing or planning to plat this property. So they're not developing it like a site plan would be for development right now. This is prepping the land for future development, and when you're prepping it or platting it, you have to plan for what the district is requiring to be developed to.
So if then that doesn't come back to us, that's just an administrative thing to approve the final
Yes,
plat.
yep.
So if there were neighbors who were concerned about density, how would they have any opportunity to comment about any changes in density that occurred later?
Well, in theory, as long as they're meeting the requirements of the, preliminary plat and the requirements of the zoning district, I mean, they can appeal an administrative determination if the planning director determines that the plat is conforming to the final plat process and the density and dimensional standards, then that would be an administrative appeal.
It's important to also note is anything that goes over, because in the multi-dwelling structures require site planning. So duplexes, detached dwellings don't require a site plan process, but as they start to escalate into those other ones, as you get in towards a 6-unit building, or I think that was your example, you start to go towards that example, that would probably trigger a site planning process, which has a different review, has a different criteria set, and does have an administrative appeal process that comes along with it. But for those that are below that threshold of the site planning process, it's a by right use that goes for building permits, effectively.
But the public doesn't have any say on building permits.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Other questions or discussions? Yeah.
One question for staff, and it's going to sound really picky, but it just stuck in my craw when I saw it. On page 4 of the packet, which is labeled as page 2 of the staff report, I know we got the one email that's at the end, but underneath the section where it says public comment, it says several phone emails. I assume that means phone calls, not because I don't know what a phone email is.
Well, they do come in as emails and voice messages, but yes, that does mean, yes,
Okay.
it was phone calls and
All
emails.
right, okay, just want to make sure.
But it really does mean they're written. I mean,
Right.
right, you get a written record of the phone call, right? It comes to you as a,
It comes as a voicemail.
yeah, as a,
If they call and we are not there, it would come as a voicemail and an email, but it's like a
it's
voice-
still audio.
It's an audio.
Okay.
It's
I
an
just-
audio, sorry. And there was one email question, which I think was included in your packet. There was an email in there with like three or four questions in it. Yes.
Other questions,
I
discussions?
have no other questions. I'm supportive of the project. I'd be happy to make a motion.
Anyone else? All right.
Is that okay?
Yes.
Move approval of Plat 25-0012 Estates of Malama based on the findings of the body of the staff report.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Oh, is there any further discussion?
No, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I just
Yeah.
want to make sure.
That's good. Further discussion? No. All right. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Did you catch Commissioner Wilson?
I don't believe Commissioner Wilson's online.
Okay. Check. Okay. Great. Item passes. We will move on to our second item, which is to consider a plat for Fall Creek Farms. The planner, Sandy Day.
Good evening. Unlike Catherine, I do not have a presentation, so I will be referring to the staff report.
It's right underneath that. Somewhere in here.
Yep, thank you. There is the chair. I'm getting there.
It's the thing right here. You hit that, and then the green button at the bottom.
Thank you.
Perfect.
You say that. I don't know if that's really happening.
Blue share now at the bottom. Is it button?
Yep.
Yep, you got it.
Okay, thank you. Fall Creek Farms 23rd plat was actually submitted in '24, prior to the current changes of the Land Development Code. However, most of the changes related to this project are in the subdivision regulations, and those have not been updated or changed for this project. This preliminary plat addresses that central portion of the Fall Creek Farm area along the south side of Peterson Road. It includes the proposed residential lots. There's two lots that really kind of end up with some split zoning for some of that legacy plan development. The applicant will be submitting a future rezoning application to resolve the plan development piece. So those actions will be coming forward to you at a future meeting. The preliminary plat then really is addressing the remaining residential lots and the couple of parcels that are tracts within the boundary of that project. The property is in the city limits. It's been in the city limits. It was annexed in '95. There is a variance that is associated with this project, and that deals with Peterson Road. You've seen the Peterson Road variance for either end of it. This is now for the central portion. It is a designated principal arterial. It's all of the same factors that we've looked at before about Peterson Road. There is no plan to widen Peterson Road. So staff has been supportive of the proposed variance as we have supported the variances on the bookend of this segment. The applicant is here this evening. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. And just to kind of cut to the chase about some of the density pieces, this property is largely zoned R1. So the calculations for the previous application were not applicable to this. We did kind of try to do some quick little math just to see what it would look like. That is in your staff report. It is a very low density residential development, which is consistent with the pattern of the surrounding area for the most part. And that's, unless you have a specific question, that's really all I have to share about the project.
Thank you, Sandy. If we have questions, we'll come back. Would the applicant like to address the commission?
Hi, Commission. Corby Rust, Land Plan Engineering. I just will add this is a cleanup of a very confusing remaining piece of the Fall Creek. This is almost it. So there was a lot. Sandy mentioned the right-of-way. We have drainage easements. We have existing sanitary sewer. We have a bridge that was built for residential street, and basically did the best we could with all the challenges on this piece. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you. Is there anyone here from the public to speak on this item this evening? Here in the room, online?
No, no one online.
All right, I'll bring it back to the commission for discussion. And we do have 2 items. There'll be the variance request and a preliminary plat.
What's the difference between a lot and a tract? I should know that, but I don't.
It's the spelling. Sorry.
For the simplest purpose of a tract is usually you cannot get a building permit on it, except for very, very minor specific things usually related to a utility. You cannot get a residential building permit on a tract.
All right, fair. One's developable, the other's not.
Pretty much.
Thank
And
you.
how does one get labeled a tract versus a lot? Like that would be in this process with the preliminary plat. Like, I was just wondering how the determination is made. That's just in this process. The developer would determine that this space here is better for a tract.
Typically, the developer will come forward with that proposal. Sometimes, in this case, one of the tracts is the pond. That's a feature of that. There's no expectation that it's going to be built. So it's a tract within the development. There are times where you will see a tract for a specific utility piece. In a planned development, many times you see the access, the private street as a tract.
Okay, thank you. Great question. Commissioner Rexrod, thank you.
Makes perfect sense now. Yeah.
Commissioner Eldridge?
Sandy, I have a couple of questions. Is a shared driveway a public access?
I'm not sure I can really answer that very cleanly. It is public in that fire would be able to access it. If you're having a delivery, they would be able to do it. But it's not a public access the way a private street is.
Well, and the reason I was asking had to do with your preliminary plat criteria number 1, that said each lot would have frontage on a public street, and that this subdivision meets the design criteria because it has shared driveway access.
Each lot in that where they're sharing the driveway, each of those lots has frontage on Peterson Road. So they have the frontage, and then they're sharing that access from Peterson down that driveway.
So all they need to have is frontage on a public street?
The lot itself has to have frontage. It does not necessarily have to take access from the public street. For this, the same way you can have a lot that is in the core downtown area that's on a street but has an alley, you would not necessarily have a driveway on some of those streets. Your access would be coming from the alley.
Okay. Then my next question has, as a surprise, I'm sure, will have to do with the net density of what you have included in here in your report showing every lot and block and what the gross area, the net area, the density, and the zoning. And is that density net or gross?
That density would be net for those individual lots. We went through this exercise. This property is actually exempt from that standard. There's no minimum density. What we did want to do is just take a look to say, okay, in this district, if you had 2 units on this lot, what would that density be? By subtracting out, in this particular case, it's really just easement that is deducted out of that starting point. That's what this would look like if you had just 1 dwelling unit or if you had 2 dwelling units in the R1 district.
And did you subtract out the right-of-way as well as the easements?
In this particular case, because this was an assessment of the individual lot, there is no new right-of-way in this project. So there's no right-of-way to deduct in this one.
So there's no new right-of-way, but isn't there existing right-of-way that is part of each lot that is on a public street?
In retrospect, I wish I had not included this table, quite frankly. The density assessment is incredibly challenging all the way around. I don't think that we're at the point where we can give you very quick, very clean responses to these. Every one of these assessments is going to be specific to the project, at least for the time being. No, I did not deduct the right-of-way. In my assessment, it was not applicable in this particular project.
If I may, the right-of-way will be deducted, and think of it more of a green field where we are adding new streets, so we have to dedicate right-of-way. That's when we would subtract the right-of-way. In this case, the right-of-way has been dedicated a long time ago. The lot or the parcel boundary, it comes up to that right-of-way. So we don't include that deduction in this case because they are not dedicating any new right-of-way.
It's probably a discussion for another time, but I find that very puzzling and very difficult then to equate density standards on lots where you've got right-of-way that's older and right-of-way that you're acquiring. It seems to me that once we have a definition that we like, it ought to be applied equally to all of our incoming properties, whether they're greenfield or whether they're older.
That's not how the code's written.
Because
Yeah.
the
I don't think the code's
buildable,
written that way.
The code isn't written in any way that's helpful, frankly.
Well, I think as far as R1 districts go, there's no density requirements, correct?
Correct.
So, as far as I'm concerned, if it's an R1 district and the way it's plotted, they're going to take into consideration easements because they have to. So for me, it's more of a, does this meet the requirements of the guidelines for, platting this for R1? Yep, stamp.
It does, yep.
Seems like density questions might be a good topic for a mid-month discussion where we
Yeah.
can dig in and
That's
we
a
can,
great idea.
staff can share their frustrations and what they're seeing as challenges. We can curse whatever group approved this code.
I don't know any.
that group.
We can sort through it then
Yeah.
rather than.
Yeah.
this evening.
No, but I do think it's really important that we, as we're trying to process these things that might be appropriate for a deeper dive in a mid-month, that because we're going to start seeing a lot of, not just this, but a lot of things as we process the new code. So I think it's important that we raise them and that we then decide whether or not and where is the best time to handle them, even if they're not applicable. So I understand that you wish you hadn't added it. I kind of wish you hadn't too, but at the same time, I'm glad you did, because now we know that we want to have a deeper discussion about this. So I have way more questions than I have answers than I thought from when I got here, but I'm looking forward to further discussion. So thank you, even though it was extra work that you added. So further discussion on this?
Be happy to make a motion.
Motion. Now remember, we'll need two. Motion for the variance and for
Move
the
approval of the
preliminary.
variance requested from section 20-1110E5 of the subdivision regulations city code, allowing a reduction of the requested street width to not less than 100 feet for Peterson Road, a principal arterial.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Next one.
Motion
Anybody else want to? Move approval of preliminary plat, Plat-24-1007 for Fall Creek Farms 23rd plat, based on the findings presented in the body of the staff report and subject to conditions listed in the report.
Is there a second?
No, second.
All right. Any further discussion? All right. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you for the great discussion. We'll now move to item number 3. I believe Drew was up. I feel like we've got to see everyone this evening.
I said that under my breath. I was like, I just see everybody
Yes.
tonight.
And we got to see Mary
Tagging in
on
and
his,
out.
yes.
Okay. Get my PowerPoint pulled up.
Hit the green share button and then do it, Drew.
Okay.
On the Zoom, there you go. Yep, you've done this.
Okay. Okay. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Drew Bilby. I am a planner. Tonight, this is a rezoning for 2 properties addressed as 623 and 645 Locust Street. The rezoning is for 1.12 acres from the M3 Mixed Corridor District to M2, which is the Mixed Large Neighborhood District. So here is just some context of the area. Area is in that light blue, the 2 lots. 645 is the one on the east, the smaller lot, and then the longer skinny lot is 623 is the long skinny one. This is part of a minor subdivision to combine these 2 lots, so it will be one. It's kind of going alongside this, as well as a site plan too that I'll touch on in just a minute. So the key points for this rezoning are that it is to facilitate the development of a mixed-use structure on that eastern side for a multi-dwelling unit use that would be located above a commercial ground floor. And then on kind of where that skinnier area is, they are proposing to do a restaurant use there. As of right now, the site statistics are there are existing buildings. I'll jump back real quick. There are existing buildings on 623, the long skinny lot. Those are going to remain there. They're basically going to rehabilitate those into a restaurant. The eastern property has various storage sheds. Those will be demolished with this project for that new mixed-use structure. So the main push for this rezoning is in the M3 district. Per our code, it does require at least 50% of multi-unit dwelling or interior non-ground floor dwelling units. They have to be associated with 50%, at least 50% non-residential use, so commercial in this case. The applicant is looking to propose less non-commercial use in that mixed structure. So that's why they're going down to the M2 district. M2 district only requires 25% non-residential. On that bottom note, they are 2 separate lots, but they will be combined with that minor subdivision in process. Just kind of forward thinking with this site plan that's going for the multi-unit dwelling and restaurant, those will require a major site plan. That has been submitted. It's still currently under review. Public improvement plans for any improvements they're doing for municipal services and various building permits. And just to note, the property is located within Tier 1 of the urban growth area, which is inside the city limits. So here are the rezoning criteria for this project, 1 through 5 as of right now. So I'll just kind of quickly run through those for you. The first item is that this conforms with the comprehensive plan. In-depth analysis was part of the staff report, but overall staff finds that this does conform with the comprehensive plan. The second is that the zoning and use of nearby properties. This staff has decided that this does meet the nearby zonings. It does create a good transition between some M3 zoning to the east, and then residential to the south, and then industrial to the north across the existing railroad track. Number 3 is about the character of the neighborhood. Staff determined that the commercial node near the intersection of Locust and, I forgot what that the north-south road is, North 7th Street. That commercial corridor fits well for this zoning district to provide a mix of uses. Number 4 is for plans for the nearby area. There are no area plans or sector plans for this area, so we fall back onto the comprehensive plan, which, as before mentioned, this neighborhood commercial use and zoning is good for this site. The comprehensive plan notes that large neighborhood commercial is best suited along collector streets, which Locust Street is considered a collector street. 5 is the suitability for the subject property. Both 623 and 645 have structures, but the city, sorry, that was for number 6. So for the suitability of the subject property, staff has found that this would be a supportable use on this site, as 645 is currently unused and 623 is looking to be redeveloped. This is just a quick land use map showing, this is a zoning map. Property is in blue, and then so to the south is M1, that is mixed small neighborhood. Most of those are duplexes. And then to the east is M3, which is red. These are various commercial and mostly construction, sales, and services uses. And then to the north in this gray is general industrial. These lots are vacant right now, but this is the railroad, and to the west, is also railroad use. This is the land use map. So in purple is considered industrial uses. 623 currently has a construction, sales, and services use on it, which that will be going to the restaurant with that site plan. And 645 is currently unused. And then yellow is residential, red is commercial. So the rest of the rezoning criteria, the length of time that it has remained vacant as zoned. So as mentioned, 645, the eastern side has been vacant. There are dilapidated storage structures, but they are not in use. 623 is currently in use as construction, sales, and services. That use would be allowed to continue if they wanted to with this rezoning, but they are going to move to the restaurant use. Next is the extent to which approving the rezoning will detrimentally affect nearby properties. Staff has found that this will not negatively affect nearby properties. This is seen as a decrease in intensity, as there are less intense uses in the M2 district. M3 does allow for more intense uses. The gain, if any, to the public health, safety, and welfare due to the denial of the application. Staff has found that there would be no gain to the public health, safety, and welfare if this was denied, as it does suit the comprehensive plan and the neighborhood surrounding. So finally, the professional staff recommendation. Staff recommends forwarding the rezoning request for Z250009 to the City Commission with a recommendation for approval based on the findings presented in the staff report. I did want to note, I'll leave this up for the review criteria for public communications. As of the writing of the staff report, there were no outreach, but today after your packets went out, we did get a phone call from a neighbor. They were mostly just concerned with the demolition of the buildings on the site and their impact to historical nature. I did run it by our historic resource manager. She mentioned that the buildings were no longer maintained enough character to be classified as historic anyway. And this isn't located in any historic environs. So that was all we had for public outreach. I believe the applicant is online. It is Paul Warner with Paul Warner Architects. I will stop sharing, but I can bring that up if needed. That is all for my presentation, and I will be here if you have any questions.
Thank you, Drew. And now we'll turn to the applicant, if you'd like to address the commission.
Yeah, good evening. Thank you. Awesome presentation, Drew. So I think it's pretty relevant that M2 just seems to fit the site way better than M3. It fits what we want to do. Mixed use project, 3 stories of commercial, first floor, residential up above. As Drew mentioned, we're going to save the buildings that should be saved and turn them into a restaurant. So an awesome mixed use project. We think we've got everything else already in process, so we're making progress on that. But the M2 just seems to work so much better. The M3, you may be seeing this again. You've already talked about some things that need to be tweaked, that the 50% just doesn't really fit. There, even in the code, it shows a 4-story building, which really means retail on the first. I think you'd have to have office on the second to get residential on the third and fourth. Otherwise, you won't be able to meet the 50%. But that's for another day. So the M2 really works. A large neighborhood sounds better on Locust Street than a mixed corridor project. So that's really all we got. And look for your support. And happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here to speak on this item tonight? Turning to public comment. Anyone in the room? Anyone online, Becky?
No, not seeing anyone online.
All right, with that, I'll bring it back to the commission.
I don't have any questions. I think it's a cool opportunity for a cool project.
Considering the current landscape, I would agree. If you've driven past that, it's not terrible, but this is a really fun way to extend some interest in North Lawrence, because I think it gets unintentionally or intentionally overlooked, and this is a cool project.
I do have a question. What was the zoning under the old code before we adopted the new code?
Good question. Let me see.
He's opening up a program that's run in DOS.
There's nothing wrong.
Commercial strip.
Yes, I believe.
Yep.
Yes.
It was commercial strip.
Okay, so there was a question then of when we did the transfer because of the new code, is there any reason that this didn't transfer to M2 or to a strictly commercial?
Yes. So CS was basically kind of our catch-all higher intensity commercial where we had strip development kind of along like Iowa Street. And so essentially CS overall just transferred straight to M3.
Okay. So there was no reason for the property owner to say, well, I think you misunderstood our use and get to M2 without having to go through a whole new application.
Correct. Yeah. They would need to, they would essentially seek what they're doing now to essentially lower their intensity, so they would have to have less non-residential required in a development.
Because what they're doing now wouldn't have fit within the commercial strip?
Correct. They would have needed more commercial, like a higher ratio of commercial use.
Okay.
So under the
Thank you
old,
very much.
under the old CS zoning, you could do residential above, but it had to be the 50% that you see in the M3. So when the CS converted, it kind of came across cleanly to the M3 with the same ratio of non-residential and residential uses that were in it. The M1 and the M2 were a little bit of a, they carried some of the other things, provisions forward, but they introduced some of that lower stepping that you see as part of that for those different areas. And that's a bit of a new nuance in the code than what we had before.
And I had just a question about the, so in this area, it looks like we're talking about M3, M2, and M1. And I noticed, if it was, so M3 would be more, more intense use and require more residential or more commercial?
More commercial.
More commercial.
Yeah, more non-residential. So it could be
Non-res-
office too. but
Okay.
Yeah.
And then M2 is kind of what we've talked about. And then M1 would be much less commercial. Is that correct?
Yeah,
This wouldn't be able to, this wouldn't fall into M1 either. Is that correct?
I think it probably could be M1. I would have to look and see if that has an associated like ratio like the M2 and M3 do.
I was just curious because when I look at the map, I was looking at what's there, and there's M3 there, and there's M1 there, but we're adding M2, and so it didn't look like any of the other stuff around was M2. So I'm not concerned about it for this project. I'm just trying to grasp my head around, like when I'm looking at character of the neighborhood and what the other zoning is, how the M1 would have affected this project.
Sure.
I'll take a shot at it. I think we don't have it memorized yet, as everybody's mentioned, but I think M1 goes down to 10,000 square feet of commercial.
Yep, I just got there.
So we're just a little bit, we're above that. So that's why, again, I think this is a better use and better fit. But yeah, 10,000. So a big difference between M3 as the transitions down.
Yeah. This project just really helps me be able to visualize the three different things that we're now looking at. So thank you. That's
Good
great.
project.
Yeah,
That's cool.
exciting project. Any other discussion or questions about it? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Happy to. Move approval of request to rezone Z-25-0009 located at 623 and 645 Locust Streets from M3 Mixed Corridor District to M2 Mixed Large Neighborhood District, based on the findings presented in the staff report and forwarding to the request of the City Commission with a recommendation for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Did you get a second? All right. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Yes. We'll move on to miscellaneous new or old business. Is there anything this evening?
None this evening, just another plug to put in. If you've seen the poll for the upcoming orientation, please submit that so we can kind of get that scheduled, but that's all we have.
All right, great. And I will entertain a motion.
To adjourn. I'll move to
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Anyone want to stay here all week? All right. Motion passes. We're adjourned. Thank you.